It's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
Hello and welcome. He is Gary McNamara. I'm Eric Harley. Let's just get right into it, shall we?
Yeah.
How are you? Listen, it seems like 4 years worth of stuff just purged to the surface. Oh, wait. Yeah. About 3.5 years worth of stuff did purge to the surface while we were gone.
Now, what I do when I come in is just to have it. I always print the hard copy of all the stories we're going to do.
Right.
And just have it because I don't want to keep 50 windows open and trying to be, juggling back and forth.
Yeah, not to brag or anything, but our computers are on Windows 7.
Yes.
So we have really good computers.
Oh.
If it were 1997.
By the way, we're not lying when we say we're on Windows 7.
No.
Okay.
No.
We really are on Windows 7.
Yeah.
We're not making that
up. And
up.
not the good Windows 7.
The Windows 7 that has not been updated or had any type of security updates for what? 3, 4, 5 years?
Yeah, something like that.
Something like that?
Yeah. We went all through COVID.
No, you're right.
Yeah. Right.
And our security's so bad on our computers, it's got COVID.
Yeah. Exactly. It might give you COVID.
Stay 6 feet away.
Yeah. Social distancing.
But so I print up everything, and right before the show begins, Alan walks in and says, "The toner's dead. None of the stories were printed." And I look at you and I went, "Eric, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
We're not going to be able to look down. It's what are we going to? It was just, and I told you, I said when I walked in the pre-show meeting, I said, if we had come up with $1 billion to give the Democrats to say, listen, guys, while we're gone, we want you to create the juiciest set of stories possible for us to hit on when we come back, it wouldn't have been anywhere close to all the things that went down. It was incredible. And we knew that after the debate that the implosion was going to happen and that the remedy was going to be one of two things. For Biden to either get out or for them to, again, get out the super glue and the duct tape and weekend at Bernie's, this whole thing until November 5th. And essentially both of those are happening right now. They're trying to, because you've got significant number of Democrats. What's the count up to officially in the House now? Is it 4 or 5? Because I think the Washington Post got it wrong and had to issue a correction. Why even issue a correction? If it's not 5 yet, it'll be 5 soon. And unofficially, there's a ton more. And they've got, it's the campaign bragging about how much money they're making. Well, they're spending a ton of money. And then the George Stephanopoulos interview to cap off the week last week, it made it worse.
I will say that here's an overview. If I was to give an overview of what happened while we were on vacation, first off, we're finding out that it may take a while, but the separation of powers, the 3 branches of government slowly work. Yeah. You're seeing that with the Supreme Court decisions that we'll probably get into here sometime this week. That we got into a lot of it, but didn't fully cover all the things that happened. But you're seeing that. Number 2, it's absolutely clear to anybody out there now, as we have stated for the longest time, that the media, that they're not journalists. they're political activists. Because what you're seeing right now, because anybody out there, any conservative saying, well, at least it's good that the media is finally doing their job. They're not doing their job.
No.
They simply came to the conclusion Biden can't win.
Right.
So now their political activism, changes to something else. To sit there and say that the media should be ashamed of themselves, stop it. Get in, please. Let's be in 2024. They're not damn journalists. They're political activists. There is no shame. They're not sitting there going, oh, well, we should have reported this. No, it was calculated. There is no shame.
Exactly.
They simply say, okay, that didn't work. Go to the next thing. He's got to get out. Well, what do we do next? We don't know, but this guy can't work. This guy's not going to work out. But there is there is absolutely no one in the mainstream media that's sitting there saying, well, we need to analyze what has happened here and how we missed this entire thing. Where was the let me get it here, because it was a couple of things here that I read where I just went, what? And let me just, I'll tell you, I didn't stop sending to my bookmarks on Twitter this weekend. Yeah. It just, and so I just wanted to get, golly, here it is. Brian Stelter from Axios.
Yeah.
Hell has no fury like a press corps deceived. Reporters feel duped and possibly some embarrassed and are scrambling to unearth new evidence of a decline. Well, that's Stelter, who is a political activist.
Right.
So he's pretending that, the people in the media, we feel deceived. Well, then how come the public, all the polls showed it, the public knew about the cognitive decline of the president? The public knew it, and the media was saying, oh, it's a cheap fake, it's a deep fake, it's a this fake, it's a that fake.
The rank and file Democrats knew.
Yeah.
The polls showed the overwhelming majority of Democrats did not want him to be the guy.
Right. They knew. And then Mark Halperin here.
Oh, boy.
Pretty binary operations. There was a massive cover-up by the Biden White House to keep the president's undiagnosed cognitive decline from being exposed, or there was a massive cover-up by the Biden White House to keep the president's diagnosed cognitive decline from being exposed.
Yeah.
If it's number one, which it is at the minimum, it's very politically damaging to Joe Biden, his administration, his campaign. And if it's number two, it's right up there with WMD and Russiagate in its historic implications. Now, the only thing there is Halperin admitting that Russiagate was a complete con on the American public. That's progress.
Right.
Would the Biden family seeing the decline really leave him undiagnosed? That is why the story of the moment is the search for number two, whether there was a massive cover-up by the Biden White House to keep the president's diagnosed cognitive decline from being exposed. Of course there was, but they couldn't hide it because he was out in public.
This isn't a massive cover-up. If that's a massive cover-up, then I need to tell you about all my years I spent playing guitar for Aerosmith.
Right. If they never let him out, if he back to Aerosmith again. I mean, if he wasn't let out, if they kept him in the basement and never allowed him to talk at all, well, of course they tried to cover it up, but they couldn't cover it up because he had to make public appearances.
Right. Exactly. I mean, honestly, there's nothing wrong. There's nothing wrong. There's F you if you can't handle the truth debate. There's something wrong. There's something wrong. That's how it went down. This is the Democrats. These are the liberal activists, including Joe Scarborough, who believe that the American people are stupid. They believe, and we've been saying this from the beginning, they believe that you can't see, millions of us who are caretakers of people that are in cognitive decline even, can't see what you're actually seeing. What you're seeing is not happening. Behind closed doors, he's doing one-handed push-ups and and changing the oil on all the armored vehicles in the fleet at the White House. He's got so much energy. He's too busy. He can't talk to you. He doesn't talk to the media because he's too busy being mentally competent.
Molly Hemingway said it as we said it. The White House press corps that had no problem running wild with accusations, anonymous sources, and conspiracy theories when it was Donald Trump. Now we're supposed to believe that they were somehow duped.
Right. Right.
I don't buy it. I don't think any Americans buy it. The level of media corruption that we're seeing is complete at this point, and now they're covering it because they've lost confidence in their ability to drag Joe Biden across the finish line. Democratic voters just had a primary election. They just overwhelmingly chose this man to be their nominee, and now the media are acting like that doesn't matter. They don't feel confident in Biden. They want to replace him. The White House press corps should resign en masse.
Yep.
And look, if you've been any short-time listener to the show, you know we've said that about the White House press corps.
Yeah.
You know how shameful it is every day, the lack of curiosity, the lack of follow-up, and the lack of protesting to the White House that when they ask a question, they don't get an answer.
Right.
They get an answer, but they don't get an answer to their questions ever. And they have been, they're in cahoots with the White House to spin it until they can't spin it anymore, until they realize their candidate can't win.
Well, and there's the problem. And because I thought ahead of the Stephanopoulos interview, the question started to come out Thursday and Friday. Hey, wait a minute. Are they going to show the unedited version? Are they going to show the entire interview, the unedited version? I'm like, please. I said, but then I said to myself, well, wait a minute. Stephanopoulos and ABC are in the position now that everybody sees. You've got, again, Democrats in the party officially now saying he should step down and let somebody else run. And so if you're ABC and Stephanopoulos and you try and do the cover-up, you're going down with the entire, Biden campaign and Biden White House, and you're going to end up looking like Joe Scarborough. And trust me, nobody wants to look like Joe Scarborough.
But the whole Joe Scarborough thing is, I think, what gave Karine Jean-Pierre the confidence to come out and state that what we were seeing, we really weren't seeing.
Right.
And that's the difference here. When you get into, for example, Russia, the whole Russia collusion, that was a Hillary Clinton operation. All of it for the over 3 years that we dealt with that, it was all lies.
Yeah.
It was all lies from the Democrat. It was lies consistently from Adam Schiff about what intelligence actually said about Russia collusion. It was, to me, one of the biggest political dirty tricks in all of American history. And now the media is trying to, save themselves as political activists by saying, well, this, Mark Halperin, this goes down in history if this is the case, that they were attempting to cover up. But, well, of course they were attempting to cover it up.
Yeah.
It was as soon as Karine Jean-Pierre was out there and the media was agreeing with her.
Yeah.
The mainstream media was agreeing with her. It's a cheap fake. It's a deep fake. Well, what's the difference between a cheap fake and a deep fake? Well, it was some kind of fake.
Right.
We're not really sure. And the media outlets have recognized, the same media outlets that sat there and was saying nothing is wrong with Joe Biden.
Right.
And it's a cheap fake.
Right.
And that was the interesting thing, that after the debate, it was like, well, yes, he has problems, but Trump lies. What are you talking about? What ended up we getting was the biggest lie, that Biden is okay.
Right. That's been going on all along. And as of late, they're doubling, tripling, and quadrupling down on. Yeah. And, and there's the problem in trying to sell the thing that, and in even Biden. One bad debate. That's not a problem. It wasn't one bad debate. For anybody paying attention, it wasn't one bad debate. It was a series, because remember, with the stuff at Normandy and the Hollywood fundraiser and all of that, the liberal media was out there in full force. Well, did he actually freeze, or was he just pausing? what was going on when he was on stage, what was happening in that moment. All of us who are familiar with it know what's going on. We've seen it ourselves. And don't tell me I'm not seeing what I'm looking at. And they tried to separate that after the debate, those events, and just isolate it and say, oh, it was just one bad night. No, it wasn't.
And so you've this is a case, and this is why this is extremely bad, not just for the Democrats, but for the media, because everyone was attempting to cover up what was going on, even though it was in plain sight and obvious to the American public the cognitive problems Biden was having. That's the problem.
Right.
Because this was Russia collusion. It's got quite complicated. Good God, it was. You ever read the what's his name's book?
Andrew McCarthy's book.
Andrew McCarthy's book.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's a long book, and that was written only like halfway through the whole Russia collusion thing, ball of collusion that he wrote. Mm-hmm. That was a huge book. So you had to go in and this is easy to figure out.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. We've been saying this for a while. None of this, what's going on with Biden's cognitive issues, what's going on with, and we've kind of put the whole family business thing aside, unless you introduce his White House doctor into it, and all of these things, and they just want you to believe that it's some master plan. No. Russian collusion. There's a Clinton-esque plan. A Biden-esque plan, not sophisticated at all. Easy to see.
866-90 Red Eye.
This report is brought to you by Shell Rotella. With advanced synthetic technology, is designed to help keep your rig running with more mileage and less maintenance. Keep your engine humming in the heat this summer by keeping up with preventive maintenance. Think your PM is complete after your oil is changed? Think again. There's grease, transmission fluids, and gear oil to consider too. Transmission fluid, for example, prevents wear of gears, bearings, and bushings, protects against corrosion, and acts as a heat transfer fluid. You may not think about this every time you get behind the wheel, but as soon as it's not doing its job, you'll notice. Misapplication of transmission fluid can mean reduced fuel economy and abrupt or hard shifts if the static friction is too high. It can also cause sluggish operation at low temperatures if the viscosity is too high and leaking through seals if viscosity is too low.
We'll be right back with more Red Eye Radio with Eric Harley and Gary McNamara.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. You know who's having a blast, though, during all of this? If you watch Scott Jennings on CNN, Republican strategist, he's just we got time to play. Just a cut here. Here we go. Ready? All right.
To give you too much credit, I wish I had some billionaire friends. You got colleagues, public and private, who want Joe Biden to step down. You've got a lot of colleagues in your conference who want him to get out of the way. And what they're really saying is, we don't have confidence in him to lead for the next 4 years, which really means they don't have confidence in him to lead today. This is not a campaign problem. This is a White House problem. There are real questions about whether he's acting independently. He said, by the way, in his interview with Stephanopoulos the other night, he wanted to do three things: restore decency. Now he's got Hunter Biden.
Okay, we got problems here because I got basically Hunter Biden running the White House right now. We'll get to that coming up here. But he's having a blast. He's having an absolute blast, and they don't know how to respond to him. The Democrats.
There's nowhere to go.
Yeah,
if you're somebody else on CNN, there's really nowhere to go.
You're listening to Red Eye Radio, from the Uniden America Studios.
And he is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Just an update. It's now Hurricane Beryl, just so people know. Strengthens into a hurricane hours before Texas. It hits the Texas landfall. It was at 70 miles an hour, I think, the 10 p.m. one.
Right.
So,
yeah, and then up to 75 at 11.
Right.
Special statement just for that update because it reached hurricane status again. We were there. That's where we stayed on vacation right there at San Luis Pass. We stay there every year. Freeport, which is not on Galveston. It's at the very end, basically, of Galveston Island. And they had just gone through some flooding locally on the you may have seen it in the news on that south and very west end of Galveston Island. There's not a seawall. Along the main strand or the main street along the ocean there in the touristy part of Galveston, it's Seawall Boulevard. There is a seawall, hence the name. And so they're just your natural sand dunes, and it's also a lower lying area. And the same is the case when you enter Brazoria County there at San Luis Pass, which is really where about a week and a half, 2 weeks ago, they had some pretty decent flooding. In fact, I had some family members reaching out saying, are we going to be able to go? We arrived, and there's lots of sand everywhere because the water carries that sand from the beach onto the streets and highways. But everything was safe while we were there, dry. We didn't have one drop of rain while we were there. But then when we left on Saturday morning, you started seeing officials come out with more and more of the voluntary thing, but also knowing that there were so many tourists in that area that they were going to have to make their way out. And I-45 for Saturday, northbound from pretty much from Houston, between Houston and Dallas, was a little more crowded than usual. I think a lot of that has to do with the holiday weekend, but also I think people wanting to get out of the way early in the day on Saturday, especially tourists. Matagorda Bay, which is south of that area and north of Corpus Christi, is where they expect Beryl to make landfall. It's going to happen while we're on the air at some point this morning, and then it's going to make its way up. We'll see some remnants, in fact, of Beryl with wind and rain later today in the Dallas area as it starts to move north and then further east and fizzles off. But taking a turn, definitely, while we were on vacation. A couple of my grandkids were noticing and saying, hey, it looks like the hurricane's coming. And thankfully, it timed out for us that we were getting out of the way. But quite unfortunately, and our thoughts and prayers go out to all of those Caribbean islands that suffered the wrath of Beryl. And now in Texas, you're going to see you could see these storm surges. They're saying now that could be 6 feet, 7 feet, or a little bit higher even in some areas. That's going to cause flooding. I know in the downtown Galveston area, you have these historic shops and everything. We were down there the other day on the 4th, and they quite often get flooded. Galveston is no stranger to a hurricane. In 1900, that entire town was basically wiped out by a massive historic hurricane. Thankfully, today, the technology allows us to prepare better for that. And now you're seeing basically the central coast of Texas preparing for Beryl, which is not the strongest hurricane. But again, keep in mind that it is the storm surge that causes the most damage and also the most deaths of any hurricane.
And the problem with the amount of rain they'll be getting in some areas, flash flooding.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
is always a concern.
Yep, for sure.
All right, I want to play that audio cut here that I had a little problem with. Scott Jennings, I was saying Scott Jennings on CNN, is just having a blast. I mean, he's just as blunt as could be, and they don't know what to do. The guests around there, they don't know what to, they're just.
What do you say?
What do you say? He goes, what are you talking about? Because he actually said in one of the audio cuts, I don't know if it's included in this one, where he just said, he goes, you've got Hunter Biden, leading the White House. I go, he's not leading the White House because what are you talking about? It came out.
Yeah.
This isn't conservative media reporting. It came out that he is the one. They're listening to him. He had the greatest influence on the president. He was the loudest voice saying, "Stay in." Mm-hmm. It's like, oh my God! It's like they have no argument for it at all. But here he is.
You give me too much credit. I wish I had some billionaire friends. You got colleagues, public and private, who want Joe Biden to step down. You've got a lot of colleagues in your conference who want him to get out of the way. And what they're really saying is, we don't have confidence in him to lead for the next 4 years, which really means they don't have confidence in him to lead today. This is not a campaign problem. This is a White House problem. There are real questions about whether he's acting independently. He said, by the way, in his interview with Stephanopoulos the other night, he wanted to do 3 things: restore decency. Now he's got Hunter Biden running the White House senior staff meetings. He said he wanted to do something for the middle class.
For Hunter Biden's not running the White
House. That's crazy, Scott.
I'm sorry. I'm just reading the journalism. I'm pro-journalist here. I'm reading the journalism about Hunter Biden running the ship here. He said he wanted to help the middle class. They're being ravaged by record inflation. And he said he wanted to unite the country, and he is the most divisive, unpopular president in the modern era. He has failed by his own standards, and now his own party is petrified that you're headed for a historic wipeout in the fall. Now, I think they're dug in like Alabama ticks. I don't think this family's going anywhere, even as Democrats want him to get out of the way because they know what's coming.
Let me bring Shermichael in here. I know.
So that's Scott Jennings. I'm going to go to Molly Hemingway, who was on Fox News and had this to say about the White House press corps.
I mean, the vast majority of Americans have, with their own eyes and ears, witnessed the decline of this president. It was a major talking point in 2020. We're talking about a White House press corps that had no problem running wild with accusations and anonymous sources and conspiracy theories when it was a Republican, Donald Trump. But now we're supposed to believe that they were somehow duped, that the rest of the country could see something that they couldn't see. I don't buy it. I don't think any Americans buy it. The level of media corruption that we're seeing is complete at this point. They didn't cover the story because they thought it would be bad for Democrats to talk about the senility of the president, and now they're covering it because they've lost confidence in their ability to drag Joe Biden across the finish line. There's nothing honest about this, and they don't get any points whether they start covering it now or not.
There you go. And it's absolutely true.
Yep. Look, anything that leads to him stepping down and not running is going to be, they believe, is going to be good. But again, we walked through this scenario a number of times in recent weeks. We did it earlier in the year when there was talk about it. And what do? You're going to leapfrog over Kamala Harris? Are you? I mean, the fury that would be. So you had the governors there, Biden trying to convince Democrat governors that everything's fine. And if I hear he's in it to win it one more time, I was going to throw my phone. And what did you hear? You heard from a handful of loyalists, but those that were rumored to be in the running didn't make the press conference afterward. Newsom made a statement, I don't know, it was on social media, I guess. But it was very awkward, the entire thing, because he's in it to win it. Keep in mind, step back for a minute, you're in re-election season for a sitting president in July, and Democrat governors have to all come together for him to tell them everything's fine. That's how bad it is.
Yeah, and they were lying.
And of course they were lying. And look, Hochul's just really horrible. She has a horrible political lying face. When she's lying, it looks painful to her. I'm not saying that I think she has a problem lying. She might, and that would be a good thing. But it does look painful to her. He's in it to win it. And then her eyes are twitching. It just looks bad. And the entire scenario is oh, we're in. You just wait till the Stephanopoulos interview. The thing.
Every single day that we were on vacation, you wake up and you're like, oh, is this the day he's going to resign? Oh, okay, I guess not.
Right.
And then it's like, oh, okay, no, he's not going to. Then by the end of the day, you're like, you've changed your mind 2 or 3 times.
Yes.
What's going to happen here, because it keeps getting more bizarre. And so the White House keeps putting Biden out there, and every single time they put him out, there's a huge gaffe.
Well, Karine Jean-Pierre refers to Kamala Harris as President Kamala Harris. And then Kamala Harris on stage on Independence Day introduces Biden as Vice President. President Joe Biden.
And then she screams.
Yeah.
She repeated something again and screamed. And I'm like, you're trying too hard.
Right. Yeah.
And it's just, and then what was the one he did yesterday? Oh, yeah. When he ran for Senate, Philadelphia put him over the top.
Yeah. Right.
Well, he was never a senator from Pennsylvania.
No.
It's just so bizarre. But then again, and I'm thinking to myself, okay, they're going to meet the Senate Democrats, tomorrow. Mm-hmm. By the way, they've now reversed that. They're not going to meet. Senate Democrats were going to meet tomorrow.
Right.
Excuse me, today.
Right, yeah.
Today is tomorrow. Sorry.
Yeah. Yeah, it's already Monday, yeah.
Yeah, I got to figure this out now. I was living in the day shift. Now I'm back to the night shift. I got to figure out what day it is again.
Right.
And now that's been and that's done. They're not going to do that. Senate Democrats aren't going to meet. And they said one of the reasons is they wanted to keep it secret and things will leak now.
Yeah.
Isn't it amazing, too, the leaks coming from the White House when you never had leaks coming from the White House before?
Right. You asked the question in the pre-show meeting. I think it's a good question. Were the leaks always there and they just weren't being reported? Why are they being reported now? And they are. I also thought it was interesting. Fox News had this story, and it's a source story, so you just have to take that into consideration here. And this came out, when was this? All right, so this would have been on Friday, but I just had to bring it up because of what we said. I said that, look, there's 2 ways to handle this. He steps down and then, all chaos breaks loose. Or you get out the super glue and the duct tape and you weekend at Bernie's this thing until November 5th. They were talking about aides at the White House and one being quoted in this Fox News story. And again, it's a source story. And it says, quote, everything else feels like weekend at Bernie's by his inner circle to prop him up. Well, no, that's exactly what's going on. It's why I use that phrase. And there's nothing else you can do. Listen, I suspected that there were a number, and I still now, in fact, I would reinforce this. My belief is reinforced to some degree, that I think that the Democrats, many in the Democrats look at this, including people like Newsom, look at this and go, let him stay in. Cross your fingers he makes it physically to November 5th and let Trump beat him. Let the Republicans take over for 4 years. Because they're not going to be able to fix all that's broken in 4 years. They're not going to get that done. And we come back in 2028. We don't implode the entire party and take everybody down. But the problem is the reason you have House Democrats that are officially saying now he should step down is the down ballot. That's going to hurt. That's going to hurt big time. And that's what they're seeing. They're seeing some of their internals. They're seeing, or they're just simply fearful, and they should be, that Biden is going to screw up their election chances.
Well, when you see, because one of the things that you and I were both looking at when we were on vacation, we haven't talked about it yet, it just is the Supreme Court decisions. And, you've got nothing I don't believe is going to happen, before November.
No.
Nothing. You saw that. Right. You saw that they moved back the sentencing to September.
Right.
So it's all Biden now.
Right. Yep.
We'll talk more coming up, 866-90 Red Eye.
Coming up, more with Gary McNamara and Eric Harley. It's Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. And then to top it off, the cherry on top of the milkshake, Eric, it's like Democrats trying to do anything in order to take, the news cycle away from President Biden. So the Democrats now are launching a united effort to block an election bill requiring voters to prove they're American citizens.
Yeah.
We're going to fight against that in order to take the negative news of what's going on with Democrats off the front page. We are going to unite to say that if you're not an American citizen, you should be able to vote.
Yeah. Wow.
It's like, my God. It's like you're just handing gifts to the Republicans.
They just keep making it worse.
Top of the Hour News is brought to you by House Products. Visit houseproducts.com.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One. Now, it's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
All across America and around the planet, we are Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Welcome and good morning. Thanks so much for being here. All right, the thoughts that went through my head, just in general, when I was on vacation. First off, you're seeing what happens with the three branches of government. Mm-hmm. One of the beauties of the Constitution of the United States, with a lot of Supreme Court decisions. Number two, we now know that it's, again, not even arguable anymore that the mainstream media is political activism, as we have seen here.
Yeah.
And the other thing is, no matter what happens in Great Britain or in France or in the United States, liberalism is slowly coming to the end, because liberalism has to deal with reality now, not just abstract concepts.
Right.
So it really doesn't matter. You can have England go more liberal. You can have France go more liberal. Reality is now what's hitting. As we've stated before, here in the United States, the Democrats' biggest problem is not the Republicans, it's reality. And if you look at everything with Biden here, it's reality. The Republicans really aren't saying, the Republicans aren't saying a lot. Trump isn't saying a lot, which is, by the way, is very good and very disciplined for Trump not to be saying anything.
Yeah.
But
it's, and I think with the European elections, you look at it and you have to keep in mind it's Europe. When you have a system that says, okay, things aren't going our way, switch, it's going to happen. And I don't have any delusions about conservatives ruling Europe for a long, long time. The conservatives in Europe always walk on eggshells, and they always do the, reach across the aisle thing and try and essentially steal from the other side in their mannerisms and try and soften conservative ideas. Well, that's not the way you do it. You implement it. But you don't have that kind of time in Europe because everybody's underwater. Their inflation is just as bad as ours. Global inflation right now, the economy is showing this very clearly. And when people are unhappy, they want change. What's going on in the States, we're a very different society. And people see it. People want their buying power back. They want the economy back. They want the border secured. They want things to be corrected. And these things that are broken were broken by the Democratic Party and the current president. And there's no way to come back from that. Then you introduce the cognitive issues. This is why I think that my theory, and again, You know, how much weight I put into this theory. I put a little more weight into it lately over the last few days for sure. That other prominent Democrats are quietly thinking to themselves, or maybe even talking to each other, saying, hey, you know what? Let's superglue this thing back together. Let Biden take the hit. And then we come back and say, well, it's clear now. We didn't know then. And of course, that's going to be a lie. It's clear now that his cognitive issues kept him from implementing a lot of policies that we would have done. And they'll play that game. And they'll ride it out until 2028 or the midterm of 26.
People ask, I've got this more than anything, this question, what's going to happen? Well, I don't know, but I can give you I can tell you what I think probably is going to happen here. Mm-hmm. Once you get the New York Times and the Washington Post and other major newspapers, did you see the Philadelphia Inquirer, though? They decided, okay, we're not going to tell Biden he needs to resign. Trump needs to resign. It's resign, but Trump needs to drop out and resign. I think it's going to get worse and worse and worse. As I stated before the top of the hour, there's not any Trump news coming.
Right.
There's no Trump news.
Right.
Everything is on Biden, and everything is the infighting between Democrats. Now you had the Senate Democrats. Mark Warner was getting some Senate Democrats that were going to meet. Now you've got Bernie Sanders said he wasn't going to show up, but that's been canceled apparently. Mm-hmm. That's not going to happen. Mm-hmm. And so we go another week of this. And another week of this is they keep, the White House keeps putting Biden out saying it was just a one-off. There was just a problem with that one debate. Yeah, everyone knows that's a lie. They keep doing it. They keep putting him out there. Every time they put him out there, there's another gaffe. Yep. Every single time they put him out there. I think it's going to get meaner. And I think when you and I talked about the fact when you've lost Michael Moore, you've got a problem.
Yeah.
And Michael Moore now calling it elder abuse. If you see the Democrats are way behind where we were, I don't know, a year, 2 years ago? I can't even remember when.
Yeah.
When we said there's some cognitive problems here, and if they're, and we don't know what it is. We don't know specifically what the diagnosis is. And by the way, thanks to people that keep sending me their own personal diagnosis. It's fine, but it doesn't mean anything. Which you don't know, and I don't know precisely what the diagnosis is because we know there's cognitive problems, whether he's senile or not. I mean, whether it's dementia, we don't know. But the fact is something is wrong with him, and they're trying to hide it, and they have been trying to hide it all this time. And the concern is not just the election. The concern is right now, and that's the problem that the Democrats have. If the Democrats say he has to get out, and I think they're going to get, as you realize, as you mentioned, the down ballot. They got problems now because if this continues, it's going to hurt the down ballot for Democrats. They can't allow that to happen.
Right.
So I think it's going to get stronger and stronger and meaner, and I think you're going to eventually get the Democrat leadership to say he has to go, to the point of that he can't serve now.
Well, this is interesting because you and I hashed that out. We said, okay, the night of the debate, we came in and we were talking about it. All right. If you're saying he can't run again, you're saying he's not fit for office now. If he's not fit to run right now, he's not fit to be president. And that's the decision they have to make. This is why I think there's so much hesitancy, because what do? You're not just pushing him off of the ballot. You have to have him resign. That's how far you're going to have to go. Because if you're saying he clearly can't run and be president anymore because of something that happened well over a week ago, then you're saying he's not fit for office now.
Now, right.
And this is the wall they've run into. And your better remedy truly is politically duct tape it together. No more interviews. have him wave. Please have him not say ho, ho, ho when he's out on a 4th of July event. And have him speak as few words as possible. And no more debates. I mean, there's no way around it, because if you go to the measure of him not running again, then you're saying he's not fit for office today, and he has to resign as president.
But I think as this continues to go on and Biden doesn't resign, look, when you lose the New York Post and you lose the New York Post, the New York Times and lost the New York Post a long time ago. But when you lose
that whole laptop thing,
when
I think that was the line.
Yeah, probably. When you lose the New York Times and the Washington Post, and when you lose Joe Scarborough, and when you lose, well, let's play David Axelrod here. Mm-hmm. Okay, here's David Axelrod on CNN.
His whole life, he has overcome tremendous loss and tremendous odds. I mean, his personal loss is well known, extraordinary and horrible, and he's fought his way back from that. He's fought his way back from political defeats and against the odds. And so his psyche is that he can beat anybody and any long odds. What he can't beat is Father Time, and that's really the concern here. It's not about his record. Every time he's asked about whether he can do the job until he's closer to 90 than 80, he says, well, look at what I did the last 4 years. That's just not the way it works. Donald Trump is a almost unprecedentedly a flawed candidate in so many ways, and represents, I do believe, as the president says, a real danger to democracy. But the one person that no one can outrun is Father Time. Mm-hmm. Tom Brady won a Super Bowl 3 years ago, and he's out of football. Okay, why? Doesn't detract from his greatness or what he's done. It's just there are certain immutable facts of life, and those were painfully obvious on that debate stage. And the president just doesn't seem to he hasn't come to grips with it. He's not winning this race. He's more likely, if you just look at the data and talk to people around the country, political people around the country, it's more likely that he'll lose by a landslide than win narrowly.
Okay, again, he's trying to make the case that it's an age problem. It's not an age problem.
No.
It's a cognitive problem.
Yep.
It's not an age problem. And that's, again, they're trying to soft sell it when Michael Moore came out and said, look, the debate was elder abuse. Whoa. Yep. Well, who's abusing the elders? He said Democrats. Well, no, it's his family.
Well,
because
that night I put it squarely on the shoulders of the First Lady.
Yeah. And so when you have that right now, when you've got that, it's going to get worse the more, because his aides now, and that's the question, which aides are running the country?
Right.
Who's running the country right now?
Right.
Is it Jill? Is it Hunter? And now that will drive Democrats nuts when you say that. But what was it? I believe it was Axios of the New York Times that reported he was the biggest influence for his father to stay in the race.
Yep.
Which means his advisors aren't leading him. Hunter is.
Yep.
And that comes from the liberal media. That didn't come from us.
Yep.
And so when you've got that kind of thing going on, I mean, those news stories are horrible. Every day he's out there, and they're going to put him out again every day this week, hoping that he gets better, and all he does is get worse. And every single day there's a gaffe. What was it? Yesterday was when he ran for the Senate, Philadelphia put him over the top.
Mm-hmm,
Philadelphia always supports him.
Mm-hmm.
He was a senator from Delaware.
Yeah.
Not Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
I mean, these are just mind-boggling gaffes. Now, none of what happened at the debate, you and I weren't surprised at all. This shocking performance. You're talking about shocking. He hasn't been able to put together a full paragraph ad lib in a couple of years.
No, I in the days leading up to the debate, I kept putting that asterisk out there. Is the debate actually going to even happen? And we were saying For how long did we say? We didn't think there was going to be one, because we didn't think there was any way you could put him on stage, and they did, and this is what happened.
I think eventually Democrat leadership will go to him, to the White House, and say, you need to resign. And if the pushback continues, then you're going to start hearing talk about the 25th Amendment.
I don't know how you get around it. Because,
from Democrats.
From Democrats,
the 25th.
Yes.
You're already hearing it from Republicans.
Yeah. I don't know how you get around that. Again, I think plenty of Democrats would love him to, all right, just let him stay in it. The problem is that you risk the fallout, you risk the down ballot. The down ballot for the Democrats in the House is going to be such an issue. The Senate races, you're looking at now, the White House internals are looking catastrophic. There's no doubt. And keep in mind, we're only a week and a half into this. The debate happened a week and a half ago. So you haven't had a time for the big pollsters to really do their work, and let's see where it shapes up. Because with more and more in the party, nobody wants to be the first at the buffet table, but once the Democrats started speaking out against it, then everybody else feels comfortable going, yeah, he has to go. And no, I can't vote for him. And you can have people respond. Even likely voters who are Democrats may say, I'm voting for Biden. But voter apathy is a big deal. And in a situation like this, which really is unprecedented, I could see it being a massive, 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 massive problem for their party. Because if you stay home because you don't want to show up for Biden, then the down ballot in every state is going to suffer for Democrats. And to save their own hide is why they want him out. It's not just the White House.
866-90-RED-EYE.
Brought to you by FPPF, Fuel Power Max.
The IFTA tax program redistributes tax revenue to states based on your actual miles run. Thus, the truly cheapest fuel can only be found if you subtract federal and state taxes and state surcharges from the pump price to compare. The strategy means that you buy without regard for whether you are paying more at the pump in taxes. IFTA also considers state surcharges, which complicates the fuel buying strategy. Indiana, Kentucky, and Virginia have per-gallon surcharges. Connecticut, Kentucky, New Mexico, New York, and Oregon have per-mile surcharges. While some owner-operators buy only enough fuel to get through surcharge states, this practice can backfire, depending on the actual cost of the fuel in each state. When comparing fuel prices, always remember, pump pride minus taxes equals the real fuel cost. Owner-Operator Business 101 is provided by Overdrive's Partners in Business program. Go to overdriveonline.com to the Partners in Business section of the website for more detail on this and many other topics.
Brought to you by Shell Rotella. With advanced synthetic technology is designed to help keep your rig running with more mileage and less maintenance.
Lines open for your calls. 866-90-RED-EYE on Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. I mean, the Democrats are losing on every issue surrounding the whole debacle with Biden. We're going to hear Jonathan Turley. It appears that reporters are really, really sorry about not revealing the president's decline, but explained it was the right-wing media that prompted them to avoid the story because they were afraid that if they told the truth, the right-wing media would then broadcast the truth. And they can't have that. And then the other story that was out there, I forgot who did it. I forgot whether it was Axios or whatever, that was talking about the fact that a Huffington Post says a Biden campaign should use AI more. It's time for the Biden campaign to embrace AI. Joe Biden is old and has had a lifelong stutter, he acknowledged. In a fiery rally following his debate performance, I might not walk as easy or talk as smoothly as I used to. This has impeded his ability to communicate with mass audiences with consistent success. AI augmentations and video renderings could serve to smooth out these bumps while allowing the Biden campaign to effectively disseminate true information about the state of our democracy and Biden's administration's accomplishments. So they want, after the whole cheap fake thing, they want a deep fake.
Yeah.
That's what Huffington Post is suggesting.
Full deep fake.
We'll talk more about this coming up.
Setting the standard for America. Eric Harley and Gary McNamara on Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley and I'm Gary McNamara. So everything is failing. You know, you and I talked about before even the debate that the polling out there that showed that more people believe that Donald Trump will protect democracy. We're like, my God, with the Democrats pounding on that for the last couple of years, day in and day out. It's amazing that the public doesn't buy it. But when you see the Huffington Post suggesting that AI be used in order that you don't let the president speak before the president speaks, you filter it through AI to make sure that he is speaking coherently. And at the same time, if you saw over the last week, the number, especially on social media, saying, look, if the president is having a little bit of cognitive problems, don't worry, he has great people around him.
Yeah,
well,
right.
and then you're saying that Trump is attempting to destroy democracy, as you're just saying it doesn't matter whether the elected president is capable or not. He's got appointed people around him that can make the decisions for him.
Right. Yeah.
I mean,
don't worry, everything's fine.
I mean, it's just and then Trump lies. As you're saying, Trump lies, as you're talking about the biggest lie, which has been covering up or trying to cover up. It's impossible to cover up, but the gaslighting that you had to do to an attempt to cover up the fact that nothing's wrong with Biden when the American public all knows something is wrong with Biden. And that, to me, is something that is unique in American politics. This I've never seen. Basically, that and until, the debate, what you saw was from the media that is basically political activists for the president and for the Democrats, stating to the American public that what you're seeing is actually not what you're seeing.
Well, I think what we could do is, now that the liberals are okay with the deep faking, we'll just get a hologram and send the hologram out there. Have him dance, he could do a number of things. Have him do some magic tricks.
I saw over the weekend, and well, let me see. This came out July 6th. Something that was written on Twitter, X. Just an attorney. His name is Damon Toll, and he wrote, and this is really interesting because I think this is true. The ignorance that you find from the left. Right wingers are fully aware of what non-right wing media outlets say. Libs often have absolutely no idea what goes on in right wing media. They have no understanding of what right-wingers actually think. This is part of why it's so shocking to them now that anyone would question Biden's competence. They haven't seen a million videos of Biden mumbling and trailing off and lumbering around and looking lost. They didn't know that he gets fed questions in advance. 2 weeks ago, libs would have called it all fake news and cheap fakes, but right-wingers have known this stuff for years. Despite positioning themselves as the educated ones in the room, libs so often have absolutely horrendous media literacy. This is also why every 2 months you get we're canceling our New York Times subscriptions freakouts, and we're seeing this happen to journalists and news outlets on a nuclear scale right now, because anything uncomfortable is seen as traitorous and must be immediately rejected. They're not used to bad news, the type of bad news that makes them feel bad about themselves instead of the other guy being bad, and they have no idea how to navigate it. Now, we know that a significant portion of Democrats, though, do know what's going on.
Yeah.
But still, when you see, for example, the 33% that said, no, Biden won the debate.
Yeah.
And that was like,
right. Yeah.
I think Babylon B the next morning, 33% of Americans desperately need help. It's like,
yeah. Right.
It's like, but I talked to somebody who is a liberal Democrat over the vacation, and I said, tell me one radical position that Trump holds.
Right.
They couldn't do it.
Right.
Well, January 6th, the election, I'm talking about any issue. Tell me where Trump is a radical on an issue, because I can tell you where Biden is. The border, it's secure. We all know that's not true. Defund the police, we know that's not true. We know he lied about Afghanistan and what the generals told him. We know the radical transgender movement. All this it's pure insanity. And the biggest one out there, that he doesn't have a cognitive problem. Agreed to all of that. Well, yeah, those are some of the problems that he has. But then on some of the issues, solar and wind, and I hit everything. He had no response. He didn't know. Well, I don't like him. It's like, wow. But there is a tremendous amount of ignorance out there. The left does not pay attention to what the right is actually saying. They just put words in the right's mouth. But the right actually does listen. They do listen, and you look at it that constantly go on social media and see everybody on the right, they're posting what everybody on the left is saying because they believe that the Democrats on the left are so insane on the issues that some of the best defense for what they believe comes from the opposition.
Yeah, right. And it's interesting seeing it again. My question would be, why did you let the debate happen? Why did you think for a moment he could stand on that stage for 90 minutes? He couldn't make it through 15.
Because you believed at that point, with everybody backing you and with the media buying the cheap fake and the deep fake, that you can sell anything to the American public. And it wasn't until people saw that debate and said, my God, it's so bad, we can no longer defend him. We need to move on to another candidate. When they viewed him as not being winnable, and I mean the media and Democrat, I think you were absolutely right, Democrats on the down ballot, and that was their evidence that they were looking for, that they could present even to the party, because the party can't dispute it. They're still trying to, members of the party still are trying to say no, but you see that when Joe Scarborough flipped.
Yeah.
My God, he just flipped. It was like he became a different person.
I guess he can't handle the truth.
Yeah, he can't handle the truth. And we look at, Michael Moore. These are people that he can't win. So I think they're in such an isolated bubble in that White House. Think about it. Remember the first thing, all the aides they went after. And this is where Scott Jennings was talking about, look, Hunter's running this. Yeah. Look at this, because everyone, you go back to after the debate, Anita Dunn, Klain, all of them were being blamed. The stories were coming out saying the family blames all the aides and are looking, who's controlling this. It's Jill and Hunter.
Yeah.
They're the ones. And Hunter, the most, and this comes from the liberal media, the most passionate defending that the president should run. Well, this kind of stuff is just completely nutty.
Well, it is insane. And, the word is now that you're at a point now where it's there's really nowhere for them to go, and they have pared it down. This is the reason you're seeing Hunter involved now, is because the other White House aides don't want. It's really down to a handful of people, and I mean 4 or 5 that are the loyal wall building around the president. There's everybody else is looking at this saying, we don't know what to do. And the stories are everywhere now. You know, all the leaks coming out of the White House now. And the reason that you can put merit to them is because it's something we've already seen. So, of course, the majority of people on the inside at the White House are going, what the hell's going on? How do we even let this happen? How do we even get to this point?
You know, when we played the audio cut where Scott Jennings said that, and there was pushback from the members of the panel on CNN. He goes, what are you talking about? I'm just reading media reports. Mm-hmm. Axios. All right? Mm-hmm. Not conservative, not Republican. We're now in uncharted historic waters. President Biden, backed by First Lady Jill Biden and his convicted son Hunter, who is serving as de facto gatekeeper for longtime friends, says that nothing besides an act of God will persuade him to quit his reelection campaign. That is the first sentence of the Axios column. Behind the curtain, unbendable Biden versus breaking point Democrats that came out on Sunday. But outside Biden's protected bubble, a fast-growing number of Democrats are praying for and plotting a more earthly intervention. They want everyone from the Obamas to congressional leaders to beg Biden to drop out of the race by this Friday.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I love this. Why it matters. Can
we give that part up? Can they not let go of it?
It says Biden and his Democratic critics share one common passion: the intensity, certainty, and irreversibility of their positions. Both plan fierce public and private campaigns to see who buckles. It won't be him. Biden says publicly and privately on a Saturday call with his national campaign co-chairs. Biden sounded full speed ahead. He vowed to spend more time talking directly to voters, whether at town halls or press conferences. Mm-hmm. The big picture, Democratic lawmakers have gone from shock to sadness to madness since the debate 10 days ago. These Democrats, further deflated by Biden's high-stakes ABC interview, believe nothing he can do can reverse the damage or his aging. The blank is going to hit the fan on Monday when Congress returns. A House Democrat told us people are scared about their own races, but they're also worried about the country and about democracy.
Yeah.
Every single person not named Biden or paid by the president recognizes how deep a hole he's in, said a top Democratic operative who's talking nonstop to elected officials. Axelrod had his column the other day, Denial, Delusion, Defiance.
Yeah. Well,
and it goes on, and that's why I think that as the Biden family, as they keep being isolated, and knocking everybody out except the family there, and this being reported by the liberal media, that you're going to see more anger. It's going to turn into anger, and then calls from Democrats to enact the 25th Amendment, because the problem is, as they get angrier and say that he is not capable of winning, and they're worried about, because people worry about his cognitive abilities, that if they force him out and get so angry that they're going to have to eventually go to the 25th as an argument.
Well, and again, you do that because you can't risk the down ballot catastrophe that's going to happen. I mean, there's just no look. We still have between now and November 5th, and as you mentioned, there's really nothing going on the Trump front.
Nothing.
The Supreme Court is done. So There's nothing that's going to really shape the election or be in the top of the news aside from Biden. It's just not going to happen. There's nothing that's going to take precedence.
866-90-RED-EYE.
Get in touch with Red Eye Radio, toll free at 866-90-RED-EYE.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. the best social media post. I can't remember who wrote it, but I saw it here in the last week that said, there is a way to get Biden out.
Yeah?
Have the DNC offer him $100 million, him and his family $100 million.
Well, but then you'll start a bidding war with China. $200 million to stay in.
The donor should just say, "Hey, look, here's $50 million. Here's $100 million.
Yeah, right.
If you get out of the race." And it's like, the Bidens are about money. So
maybe that's why Hunter is so involved now. He's taking bids. He's fielding all the calls.
But the Axios story that we were reading is saying, look, we know there's only 5 Democrats, but you go behind the scenes are saying no. Everybody wants him out.
Right.
What was it? One major donor said for every 10 people who think he should exit,
right,
1 thinks he should stay.
Right.
This is Democrats.
Yeah. Yeah. It's as we said earlier, you may have a handful saying officially, but it is the majority of them that know that he should not run. He should be out.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One. Now, it's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
All across America and around the planet, we are Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Good morning. Thank you for being here. You can download our Red Eye Radio app today. Listen when and where you want. If you can't listen live overnight, you can listen when you choose.
And thank you.
Absolutely. Well, Hurricane Beryl now 80 miles an hour. Cat 1 hurricane, 7-foot storm surge at least expected, 10 to 15 inches of rain, especially near places, around Houston, Galveston, stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then it's going to be wet, and it heads right up. In fact, they were calling in Buffalo for the effects.
Yeah.
This coming, Thursday, Friday, next Saturday.
Right, yeah. Beryl also, as hurricanes do, producing some supercells along the way. Galveston County, just one of those counties now that is also under a tornado watch. And so you have to be right now very aware in that area, if you're still in that area, of those tornadoes that can spawn very, very quickly in a situation like that. The number one problem from any hurricane is going to be storm surge, as you mentioned, Gary. You could get several feet of storm surge, and then you add to that the rainfall totals, which are going to add to the totals that they had. The ground, I was, in fact, there last week, there in just west and southwest of Galveston at San Luis Pass and in Freeport, Texas, and the ground is saturated still from some tropical weather that they had before, with storm surge coming up in that event and bringing sand onto the roadways and everything else as it often does. They're old pros. We saw, in fact, earth movers out there on the beach, kind of restructuring on that end of it. Galveston itself, in the center of that strip there of the island, has a seawall. There's no seawall there on the west end, and then across in Brazoria County, all the way down to in Freeport, and then all the way down in that area. It's lower. It also doesn't have a seawall, but they do have the sand dunes, the natural sand dunes that have grass on them. But of course, they can that weather, especially with storm surges, can move that sand out of the way and onto the roadways, and it really wreaked havoc for a lot of businesses down there, and it's going to this time as well. Then they have to bring in earth movers and rebuild a lot of those sand dunes. But certainly you're seeing that right now, flooding going on in those areas affected by Beryl as it makes its way onto landfall this morning. And there are images and videos coming out as the water starts to rise. And again, that's the most dangerous part of a hurricane. It's always the most deadly part is the flooding that comes along with it, not just from the heavy rain, but the storm surges. And we'll be watching this throughout the morning as Beryl continues to come ashore and then makes its way as a tropical system, as you mentioned, Gary, up through Texas, mostly eastern Texas. Dallas will get some of the rain. We're actually only going to see a high as a result of it in the mid-80s later today, which is rare, but it's because of that tropical system that's going to bring that rain on and off throughout the day to Dallas and the area, the North Texas area. And then as it starts to move east, those remnants will continue to have a lesser effect, but still some rain. And so I have a brother, my oldest brother, who lives in Portland, Texas, which is near Corpus Christi. They are on the west side of Beryl. And so there was a voluntary evacuation. I think he said, he texted out yesterday. He's going to stay put. He's inland a little bit. He's not on the shore per se. He doesn't have, his wife is out of state and at the moment, and so it's just him. And so if he needs to get mobile very quickly, he could, but he doesn't expect in their neighborhood to have much. We're also hearing, in fact, that in those areas, in fact, some reports online of individual storm watchers who are in those areas, or there's multiple power outages, as you can imagine, as the winds 80 miles an hour. While that may be on the weaker end of the hurricane scale, it is a very, very powerful wind force. We experienced that here in North Texas, in fact, as the result of a storm that hit the day after Memorial Day here in North Texas, and we had 80-mile-an-hour sustained winds here. It wasn't part of a tropical system, but nonetheless, those powerful winds can take down power lines. In fact, many people, a lot of people here in North Texas were without power for a very long time as a result of that. You can expect that to be the case with the effects of Hurricane Beryl this morning, also taking out power. There was reports of the flashing, and you see those flashes on those power lines, and you know what's coming. And so those individuals that did stay behind and did not evacuate to get out of the way are experiencing, in many cases, no power right now, and that power could be out for a matter of days, as it does take the responders quite some time to get to them, depending on the damage. So that's going to be the case. They're very familiar, all too familiar. The mayor of Galveston yesterday has had a press conference. He's talked about that and that area, any coastal area that's in the Gulf Coast has seen their share of hurricanes, but Galveston certainly has, going back to the big one in 1900 that wiped out Galveston. But this one is still a dangerous storm, and you really have to take all this information very seriously and be fully aware of what's going on with, again, flooding, possible tornadoes as a result of those tornadoes being spawned from the winds and everything else that's related to Hurricane Beryl. Again, 80-mile-an-hour sustained winds. Houston seeing some rainfall now, and that's going to continue to be the case as it moves its way up, essentially along I-45 to the Dallas area later today, and then off to the east and northeast after that. So, but looking at some flooded roadways, some images that are showing up right now as reports come out of the area, the central Gulf Coast of Texas. And it's what you would expect. Let's hope it doesn't get much worse. But again, the storm surge 6 to 8 feet or even higher in some areas. And that storm surge is, again, what really creates a problem and is the most deadly part, the flooding overall of any hurricane, and the flooding also from the rainfall. Lots of rainfall. Houston area has been inundated this spring with rain. Much of Texas has. We got pounded with a lot of rain, which is much needed rain, and we got it during the spring. But the rainfall in Houston was so great this season that it killed off the Gulf oyster population there that basically lives off of brackish water. So much fresh water inundated that area there in the Galveston area from that runoff, from that freshwater runoff. It basically shut down a lot of the oyster harvesting there in Galveston Bay and in that region. But certainly, first and foremost this morning, all the people that are right now in the path of Hurricane Beryl as it starts to make landfall here in the central Texas Gulf Coast area. Matagorda Bay, which is southwest of Galveston and east of Corpus, so it would be between Corpus and Galveston, is where really the eye of the hurricane is coming ashore. And again, they're going back to Ike and all the hurricanes in later years here that have done a lot of damage. I was mentioning staying at San Luis Pass there in Freeport, which we have done for years during Independence Day week. And there was a huge fishing pier there at San Luis Pass that was taken out during Hurricane Ike and never rebuilt for a number of reasons. But you see a lot of change if you go to these coastal areas, you see a lot of change and a lot of, quite frankly, new building because it's rebuilding quite often from storms. And it doesn't require a Hurricane 5 to leave behind damage that is catastrophic in nature. I'm boggled by how you keep rebuilding these homes and all of that and what it takes to maintain businesses and everything else along any coastline that deals with hurricanes on a regular basis. And you can pretty much include all of the Gulf Coast in there at some point.
We'll keep you updated on Hurricane Beryl throughout the morning. Coming up next, even the jobs numbers that came out last week, nothing that the president can brag about.
Nope.
We'll get to that and more. 866-90 Red Eye.
We'll be right back with more Red Eye Radio with Eric Harley and Gary McNamara.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Reading this from the Wall Street Journal on the economic numbers that came out, the labor numbers last Thursday, I believe. It was Thursday, right? Or Friday? Whatever.
Friday, yeah.
Look under the hood, and most new jobs being created in recent months are in trades that rely on government spending.
Mm-hmm.
Employers added 206,000 jobs in June, though the unemployment rate ticked up 0.1 percentage points to 4.1%. The good news is that the labor force participation among prime working age Americans is at the highest in more than 20 years. There's a reason for that, though.
Mm-hmm.
Low birth rate.
Right.
On the other hand, the jobs market appears to be slowing. New jobs were revised down by a combined 111,000 for May and April. Job growth has averaged about 177,000 over the past 3 months compared to 220,000 over the past year. Nearly 3/4 of the net new jobs in June were in government, healthcare, and social assistance. These industries made up roughly half of the new jobs in May and more than 90% in April. Construction accounted for a large share of the rest. Nurses, social workers, and plumbers are still in high demand, but less so others. Manufacturing employment has been flat since November. Information has shed jobs over the past 2 years. Job growth in leisure and hospitality has slowed to a trickle. Total hours worked in leisure and hospitality haven't budged since late last year because employers are cutting hours. Could rising minimum wages in many states be one of the reasons? It probably is in California. Falling employment over the last 6 months among young people ages 20 to 24 also bears watching. None of this screams recession yet, but the report does indicate that government spending is increasingly driving job growth. The U.S. is running $2 trillion deficits, which are not sustainable. How long can government sustain an economy before something cracks? We may find out.
A huge chunk of those jobs also were part-time jobs.
Oh, yeah, I forgot about that. Yeah, you're right.
And
Yep.
that's, indicative, again, of people getting a second job. When you're underwater and you can't make ends meet, that's your choice. That's the first thing you go to. Okay, what else can I do with my time? And so you had a significant portion of those jobs that were part-time jobs. You're also getting into the summer months when part-time job creation is expected to rise. Summer jobs for college students, high school students. But now you have to put in there the gig work, the part-time job for those who are working a full-time job as well. And it's not a good scenario. We're at a point right now where I don't know. I had one of my adult kids ask me, Dad, where does it change? How do we get back to a point of being able to afford things? And I said, well, it would require the expansion of wealth because prices aren't going to drop. You're not going to see prices overall drop to the point of where they were in 2019. That won't happen. So to get your buying power back, there has to be an expansion of wealth. An expansion of wealth requires people. It requires new innovation. It requires a growing workforce, and we don't have it. We don't have it for a number of reasons. Right now, if you're 45 or older, you are a hot commodity because you have experience, because you have more history in the workplace. Right now, employers look at you as, and it was predicted it was going to happen this way, and it really has been that shift. And you are going to earn more because of that. You're going to, it's right now highly, uncompetitive in the workforce, except when you get into the competition of businesses competing for people in the 45-plus age group. They want more and more individuals. You see fast food companies looking at, okay, we need a manager. There are certain things we can automate. We still need a manager, and we need to incentivize. And they're still having trouble finding. big brand names like Chipotle, In-N-Out Burger. These are companies that pay their managers a lot of money for the sector that they work in. And it's really still hard to staff them. You know, we're at that point right now. If we don't have a massive explosion of wealth creation, and a really big boom of wealth creation over the next 5 to 10 years, we're going to continue to be where we're at. The spending power is going to continue to be where it is now.
When you see the number of part-time jobs and increase and the number of full-time jobs actually going down, when you see that, it's like, whoa. When you see that so many of the manufacturing jobs or construction jobs are related to the infrastructure bill, which means you're borrowing money long-term for infrastructure. We talk about the GDP, and is that really indicative of the health of the economy, or is it more what we produce in goods and services? You and I always believe it's not what we believe, it's what is. What drives an economy is making a profit by producing things that are sold in the marketplace.
Yep.
That's what really, really drives an economy. You drive an economy by producing products and by increasing productivity and efficiency.
Yeah, right.
Government infrastructure projects don't do that.
Right.
You're listening to Red Eye Radio from the Uniden America Studios.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. It really is amazing, though, because we were just going through the job numbers here, that issues really don't matter right now. It's everything is directed at Biden and his cognitive abilities. I want to play this audio cut because this is just from a few weeks ago. Okay, this is Jen Psaki with Representative Raskin.
Yeah, wow.
And listen to them they're talking about the cheap fakes and the deep fakes and all this.
Yeah,
Here we go.
This all comes in a week where there was some New York Post report, inaccurate, false reporting that suggested that President Biden was kind of stalling, where he was paused, he was looking the other way. I feel like there's a double standard. I mean, do you feel like there's a double standard out there in how people are looking at their ages?
They can't mess with him on substance, so they go after what they see as his Achilles heel, which is his age. And, of course, a lot of people see his age as, something that helps explain some of his wisdom and some of his compassion. The kind of compassion you see not just within his family, but outside of it. That compassion for people in his family, which is real and authentic, becomes solidarity for everybody in the country who's struggling, as well as for people around the world.
What the hell is he talking about?
What
the hell is he?
What are you saying?
That's 3 weeks ago.
But that's where they were.
Mm-hmm.
It was, especially after the Hollywood fundraiser freeze, it was, people like, well, I don't think he froze. I think he just paused. Okay. Barack Obama had to go back and grab him by the hand and then put his arm around him and essentially help him walk off stage.
And that's, by the way, there's a ton of problems here, but did you see James Carville talking about over the weekend? I think he was on CBS. About how identity politics is killing them. My identity, I'm an American. Why do we worry about, like you were saying this, James, I'm sure you were one of them that was pounding on top of it to any conservative black out there that you were saying the same thing about identity politics.
Right.
They're backing off on all these things because there's a problem with it. James, it's a problem when your party is racist. That's what identity politics is. You judge people by groups and not individuals. Everything is falling apart. I love how Raskin says nobody can argue with Biden on the issues. You can't debate him on the issues, so you just say that he's old. No, you can do both.
Yeah.
I mean, to sit there and say that Biden somehow is, I mean, this is delusional too, that Biden on the issues, that the majority of the American public disagree with him on the issues.
Yeah. His Achilles heel is not his age. It's not his cognitive decline. It's his incompetence. He was incompetent before this.
Right. He'd be doing the exact same thing on the issues, whether he had cognitive problems or not.
The policies haven't changed because cognitive issues. Now wait for it, because I do suspect that the Democrats, after this is all over, well, we loved Joe and we didn't see it at the time, and but some of the policies weren't working, blah blah blah, and because of his age and decline in health, they'll probably, I think somebody already did phrase it that way. That kind of got in the way of the policies. His policies haven't changed. His agenda has been very clear. And that's where you see the reality defeating them over and over again. Because you can't remember that short but quickly defeated wave of Democrats that came out several years ago saying, we got to get away from identity politics. We got to get away from identity politics.
Yeah.
Even Rahm Emanuel was part of that, remember?
Mm-hmm.
And it was not, and by the way, a chief of staff for Obama, for those that don't remember, and then went on to be the king of Chicago for a bit. And they know they can't make that last. But the problem is they have others in the party, like Stacey Abrams, who says, well, no, not only do we need to keep doing it, it's working for us now. We believe it's working. They were still winning elections. Here's the game changer. Where does it stop? When they're no longer winning elections. Where does it start to change? When they can't retain their power. A party that has been hell-bent on identity politics, on their agenda, will only be stopped when the people say enough. And that's what we're looking at right now. In California, it's not going to change. In states like New York, it's not going to change. In major blue metro areas, it's not going to change. And I suspect that will be the case. It won't ever change, at least in my lifetime. I won't see it change. But the agenda overall, most Americans look at that and say, okay, this isn't working. And if they start losing elections, that's where it starts to change. And then you have you're already seeing a few fissures here and there in the Democratic Party between the far left and the not so far left. I don't even know what to call it anymore, between the radicals and the only slightly radicals. It's now a situation of having to regroup and say, and by the way, it could be very short-lived. It could be a lot like the Virginia governor's race a few years ago, when that night after the defeat, they just looked at it and it was like, all right, what do we need to do? We need more radical people who can espouse our radical views. And for a lot of the radical left, they'll look at this and go, see, Joe Biden wasn't good enough on selling the radical agenda. We need people who are better at selling the radical agenda that can get it through.
And that's why we always said, early on, that Newsom probably is the guy that they're looking at, because he's young, has the Pat Riley 1980s kind of slick back haircut that apparently they still love in California. And, California Democrats apparently love that. And But when you look at everything that is happening here, what's going to happen? I see things getting, if he's going to remain stubborn, I see the leadership getting together in the next couple of weeks. Look, you've got a ton of things going on. The Republicans have their convention coming up here very soon, just in a couple of weeks. It's a convention. They'll be pounding on Biden every single day. Every single day they'll be pounding on him. Where do you go with this if they decide to? I mean, how do they get rid? If Biden doesn't want to leave, how do they get rid of him? The only recourse is the 25th Amendment. If Biden comes on and says, "Look, okay, I'm not going to run again. I'm going to promote Kamala Harris." What happens at the convention? Nobody has any idea. Is it going to be an open convention? And that would be just a complete, total disaster mess. Can you imagine the number of protesters in Chicago if there's some type of open kind of primary?
Oh, man.
I mean, it's just going to be absolute. So there are no good options here. There are just bad ones that may be less destructive than others. But if Biden decides to stay in, will there be talk in a week or 2 weeks about the 25th Amendment? Will that
from
come
the
up?
left, right?
And I mean from the left because look, when the New York Times and Washington Post came out and said bye, gone, when Joe Scarborough said bye, gone, well, at that particular point, they're throwing him under the bus. There is no loyalty. And this, I saw Nancy Pelosi post on Twitter yesterday. There's only so far 5, and I heard 4 more. That only makes 9 out of the hundreds upon hundreds of Democrat representatives. Why isn't that being brought? That it's the majority still support Biden? Because as Axios pointed out, they don't. They're just afraid to say anything right now.
Yeah, it's interesting. So as you were doing. We're watching the liberal media take. We're on vacation last week watching the liberal media take on this, which was far more interesting than anything Fox News or New York Post could offer up. You know, and here's the New York Times basically making the case that it has to be Kamala Harris because you can't leapfrog over Kamala Harris. And here's the line that they start with. Imagine a presidency that could be unburdened by what has been. I thought that right there, I mean, it sums it up because liberals hate that phrase that she, you know, the similar phrase that she keeps regurgitating for some reason. I think she thinks it's working for her. I think they fired a speechwriter or never hired one for her. I think she's writing her own stuff. But that's who they're stuck with. And keep in mind, she dropped out of the primary in December of 2019, not in 2020. Early December 2019, she was done. And that's because the party, her own party, didn't want her to be president. Biden picked her. She didn't earn her way there, and the Democrats all know that, but they're saying she's got to be the person. Meanwhile, other liberal media saying, well, here's a list of other Democratic governors who could be, you know, and they bring up everybody.
I love the fact that now it's like the DEI choice, Kamala Harris, and then the left saying, that's racist, that's racist, that's racist, to call her a DEI hire. Well, when you say that the hire must be a black woman.
Are you not saying you want, do you not want diversity, equity, and inclusion?
Right. You're the one that said, Biden's the one that said, it has to be a black woman. That's who he is going to choose. He didn't say the most highly qualified person, and I found that in a black woman. He said it has to be a black woman.
Yeah.
And so I always love how the Democrats start something, label it, and then when attacked by the other side for doing a DEI hire that they promote, they get furious that you're calling her a DEI hire.
Yeah.
I mean, do you promote DEI or don't you promote DEI? And when accused of promoting, DEI in choosing Kamala Harris, then they go, well, that's racist. Well, how can a DEI candidate be racist?
Right.
By me pointing out DEI, which is a concept you have come up with, not Republicans. How is that racist?
Right. You're the ones that started this whole thing.
Because the whole thing about DEI is that physical characteristics are more important than qualifications. Otherwise, you'd never mention DEI.
Right. Are you saying it should be Newsom? Because that's racist. I don't know where to go. We don't write the rule book.
Yeah. I mean, it's just, and expect the shots to start flying back and forth now. And I do believe you're going to have members of Congress now. When Michael Moore came out and said, "Look, this is elder abuse."
Yeah.
Now that door's been open by somebody who has been an active promoter of the Democratic Party for 3 decades now.
Right. Yeah.
You open that door, and it's like as we keep going closer to the convention. And by the way, I don't believe the poll that showed that since this happened, Biden is tightening it up in swing states.
Yeah,
I don't buy that.
No, not at all.
866-90 Red Eye.
Coming up, more with Gary McNamara and Eric Harley. It's Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. I went to the Babylon Bee lead headline. Democrats outraged over vice president chosen for her race and gender being labeled DEI hire.
Yeah.
It's like,
yeah.
Look, as soon as you put DEI in, what you're saying is you have to consider physical characteristics before the merits that person brings.
Right.
DEI, it means meritocracy takes second place.
Right.
So then it's like, but you're racist if you bring it up for her. Well, you created the term.
Right.
What does the term mean?
Exactly.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One. Now, it's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
All across America and around the planet, we are Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Good morning. Thank you for being here. Hurricane Beryl hit shore yet?
Getting close. Now, getting very close. I think officially it's maybe just minutes away. I haven't seen it, but certainly coming ashore there at the central Gulf Coast of Texas. Hurricane Beryl was sustained maximum winds of 80 miles an hour as it comes ashore. It was becoming more organized. The eye was becoming more organized over the last couple of hours. The wind strength regaining it had become a tropical storm and then regaining strength in the last hours before coming ashore here. And you're seeing the effects in the Houston area. You're seeing the effects all down that region along the Gulf Coast, central Gulf Coast of Texas, essentially between Galveston and Corpus Christi, Matagorda Bay right now feeling a lot of those effects. But, they call it the dirty side of the hurricane. So that would be the northeastern side of the hurricane where it's bringing all that storm surge ashore. And many of those areas there on that side of the hurricane looking at the possibility, in fact, that entire stretch of that central Gulf Coast of Texas, looking at the possibility of up to 6 to 8 feet of storm surge and flooding from rainfall. And it is the flooding. It's the heavy water that is the most dangerous part of any hurricane. Also watching now the possibility of tornadoes being spawned, as there are a couple of tornado watches in that area that are, in effect, not aware of any warnings for tornadoes as of yet. Surfside, Texas, which is south and west of Galveston a bit. I was just passing through there, in fact, several times on vacation. Surfside reportedly lost some power over the last hour and a half. But as you can imagine, that's going to be the case along the water there. There is west of Galveston in Brazoria County, Texas, is the Blue Water Highway, and that it is right along the water, and in fact, right now underwater as a result of the storm surge there, and you see, as anybody who's familiar with these coastal regions, they put these houses on stilts. And so even then, many of those houses are seeing some water come up to that top level of those stairwells. In other words, the bottom of the actual house part. And it's a very powerful storm that you shouldn't take lightly if you're going to be anywhere in the path of Beryl, even inland, further inland. You should know that heavy rain is going to present some problems with flooding as you get into the Houston area. Houston, no stranger to floods, having some flooding issues in recent months, and also has been in this situation before with hurricanes in the past. Beryl presenting the same problems again as other hurricanes typically do, and that's high waters. And I know with a tropical system that moved through that area, through just west of Galveston, and in that area, and Galveston, also some of that within the last couple of weeks, saw some flooding, and we were still seeing remnants of the floods there when we were there last week, rather. And so the ground is already saturated in that area. So that's going to lead to further problems. There was not much rain there in the part where just west of Galveston and on the western end of Galveston while we were there last week. But still, because the air is so moist, not much of a drying potential from that last tropical system that moved through there. So that saturated ground not able to soak up much of that water. It's also low-lying on the west end of Galveston. The Galveston mayor yesterday issuing a statement as to the preparation there. And while the more touristy part of Galveston has a seawall, the west end does not. Then you get down to Matagorda Bay and other areas there along the central Gulf Coast of Texas. And they are, of course, seeing right now the eye of Beryl as it comes in. But that eastern part and northeastern section of the hurricane is where that draw of that surf will basically come in, and you'll see that flooding, and that's going to be the case over the next couple of hours as Beryl continues. Right now, there are reports that some of the winds are higher than 80 miles an hour. The National Hurricane Center, their 3 o'clock Central update shows maximum sustained winds at 80 miles an hour, but other reports are saying that winds in certain areas are clocked at closer to 90 miles an hour. When you're talking about that kind of wind power, while that may be a Category 1 hurricane, and you may think it's not dangerous, that wind can take down a lot of structure, and it becomes very, very dangerous. And again, the flooding from the storm surge, the flooding from the rainfall, the most dangerous part of any hurricane is going to continue to be that threat over the next few hours as Beryl makes landfall, then making its way up essentially along I-45 into the North Texas area, and then taking a turn as the remnants then continue to pour rain on others throughout the U.S. In a northeasterly direction from Texas.
Everybody has ahead of landfall, even at 4:11 Eastern time. Just a couple minutes ago here from CNN. It looks like the eye is over the barrier islands, at least, and it possibly could be landfall already.
Yeah,
from what I can see from Weather Channel.
That's what
radar.
It looks like.
That's what it looks like.
That's what it looks like from the satellite view, and watching a number of sources here online that are covering it live, and certainly the effects again as you see the flooding and many of the videos coming out of this area, as you have many of the region's storm spotters that are in that area right now with that have live cams going. It is very it's very frightening to watch, no doubt, and certainly if you're in the path of Beryl there along the central Gulf Coast of Texas, then you should be aware of everything that's going on right now, again, including the possibility of tornadoes being spawned by this system, which is always the case. That's always a possibility with hurricanes. And those tornadoes pop up very quickly and can do a lot of damage in a short period of time.
All right. What's going on with the president? What's going to happen today? Congress is back. I know Jeffries, the speaker is, the minority leader is supposed to have a Zoom conference with other Democrats today. There are now, according to Nancy Pelosi's tweet, 9 members of the Democrat Congress that have come out against Biden running. She's asking the question, well, how come the story isn't the majority support the president staying in? Because as Axios points out, that's not the case.
Right.
From all of their sources. Axios, again, not a conservative publication, but it's, as was quoted one source, it's 10-1 right now for him not to run. If he stays in, well, the pounding's going to continue. You started seeing this, and I don't remember the exact day because I was on vacation, but when they started blaming the chief of staff, when they started blaming Klain, when they started blaming Anita Dunn, that for his performance, and then the liberal media was promoting how much of an influence Hunter Biden has been. Expect the Republicans are going to pound it this week. Is Hunter running the White House?
Yeah.
And this from Miranda Devine from New York Post this morning. Democrats trying to dislodge Joe Biden will first have to combat the proxy commander-in-chief, Hunter Biden. That's easier said than done, with the Biden family digging in behind Joe staying put. Any staffers or party grandees deputized to strong-arm Joe Biden out of being their candidate in November had better not underestimate the first son. While the focus has been on 4-time Vogue cover girl Jill Biden and her screeching assurances that Joe is fine and hearty and fit for another 4 years, the first son has flown under the radar. But Hunter is glued to his father's side for a reason. He was with him at Camp David to help prepare for the disastrous debate, was there for the vainglorious Annie Leibovitz family photo shoot post-debate, then flew back with the president to the White House, where he's been ensconced ever since. Wow.
Yeah.
He reportedly is acting as gatekeeper to his father and helping write speeches for him. By the way, I believe that term came from Axios, the gatekeeper, while White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre confirmed that he has been sitting in on Joe's meetings with senior staff.
By the way, I think actually the term came from Ghostbusters. I'm the gatekeeper. Are you the keymaster?
Hunter has always regarded himself as smarter than his father's aides, some of whom are telling reporters that they are flabbergasted by his presence at this crucial time. What the hell is happening? Senior White House staff members told NBC News. NBC.
Mm-hmm.
Hunter's role has also caused concern for the powerful House Intelligence Committee, with Republican Chairman Mike Turner demanding to know if Hunter is receiving classified information. By the way, I keep saying Chief of Staff Klain. It's not Klain anymore. I'm sorry. It's Jeff Zients is the White House Chief of Staff.
It could, and that could change over the
he wrote
the next 24 hours.
I don't know why we've kept saying Klain. I don't know. But blame it on I'm changing my time shift and I'm old.
Yeah.
He wrote the White House Chief of Staff requesting a full accounting of any official meetings and phone calls Hunter Biden is participating in, and what capacity, and whether these discussions include classified information. Yeah, you're going to get that real quick.
Uh-huh.
Despite the questionable optics, Hunter is not even trying to hide his position of influence, and instead is actually proprietorial, important, and in charge. Cameras caught him looking happy and networking like a pro in the East Room, where his father was conducting a Medal of Honor ceremony when the president delivered a teleprompter speech. Hunter stiffened up and stared at him intently, as if willing him not to flub it. Hunter has always exerted some element of control over his father, especially since the death of his older brother in 2015. But in the addled state Joe is in right now, unable to hide his cognitive deficits, Hunter is in the driver's seat like never before. Expect Republicans to pound on that. Like I said, the one thing that I thought was incredible, and it was in the last couple of days when it's like, all right, Democrats are going to try to change the topic here. So Democrats are uniting. They're bringing in the big guns to promote the fact that they want to defeat the Republican bill that says in order to vote, you must be an American citizen. And Democrats are going to change the topic to their advantage by saying, no, we believe anybody should be able to vote in an American election, even if you're not a citizen.
Yeah.
What the excuse my language. What the hell?
They're just making it worse.
I mean, just can't make this stuff up. That's bad. This is bad news for the Democrats. This is Hunter. This is the New York Post story. And disastrous for the country. Those who know Hunter well say that despite his reputation as a crackhead loser, he is highly intelligent, manipulative, methodical, and always out for his own ends, which now more than ever depends on his father maintaining power. Knowing them on a familiar level, they will have to be dragged out, said one former friend. I think the Bidens are going to fight all the way into the ground, said another. They only give a blank about themselves and the Bidens. Hunter also is fearless and willing to fight to the death to get what he wants. That makes him a formidable adversary for any hapless Democrat believing that all they have to do is sweet-talk Jill and Ashley Biden, or appeal to Joe's sense of party loyalty and a desire to preserve his legacy. Hunter has a lot at stake personally in Joe remaining in office, and he has benefited from Joe's power all of his life, but now his future is in peril with the looming felony tax trial in California as he awaits sentencing over his felony gun conviction in Delaware. Wow.
Yeah.
Just amazing. But, I mean, Republicans are going to pound on that now. They're going to pound on that.
Yeah, because you can't win the imaging on that. It doesn't matter what you try and sell Hunter Biden as. He comes off as a creepy loser.
And if that's true, that's why I say this is going to get worse and worse. They've already thrown Joe under the bus.
Yeah, look.
Now the meanness will start if he doesn't leave.
I believe he and his family are defiant to the end. Now what do the Democrats do about it?
And that's the question.
Yep.
That we'll delve into more. 866-90 Red Eye.
Brought to you by Hotshot Secret.
Hi, I'm Jen Loomis, a transport safety expert at J.J. Keller, and I'm here to share a tip on speed and space management. Due to safety concerns, many motor carriers have policies that limit or prohibit the use of cruise control. If your motor carrier does allow you to use cruise control, you should only use it in good driving conditions during daylight hours and on roads that have light traffic, few curves or hills, and a consistent speed limit. Never use cruise control when operating in adverse driving conditions, including wet, icy, or slippery roads, during rush hour in heavy traffic or on congested highways, at night, or when you're tired or fatigued. During all of these driving scenarios, you want to be controlling and adjusting your speed as you drive instead of having to suddenly brake if you encounter an obstacle. In the case of a slippery road surface, you want to be able to slow your vehicle by not accelerating instead of using the brakes whenever possible. This tip was brought to you by J.J. Keller and Associates. Visit us at jjkeller.com.
Lines open for your calls. 866-90 Red Eye on Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. So Business Insider actually has that headline.
All right, so I just saw it during the break, and here it is from Business Insider. All right. You're not losing your mind. Biden is getting more orange. And it's got a paywall, but I get the gist of it because here's the first couple of sentences. If you think President Joe Biden has been looking a lot more orange, you're not alone. Biden's complexion has changed remarkably since the start of his term, with his skin now emitting a Trump-esque glow. That's from Business Insider, not a conservative outlet.
Observing and analyzing the insanity. Eric Harley and Gary McNamara. Nightly on Red Eye Radio.
And he's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Download our Red Eye Radio app today. You can listen when and where you choose if you can't listen live overnight. Man, there's just so much to go through here because we're talking about now that Republicans will be pounding the fact that Hunter Biden is running the White House.
Yeah.
And a lot of this reporting comes from the liberal media. And you wonder, and then the next question would be, well, okay, is that true or not? And you look for other signs, other things that may give you the direction of what story is right and which story is wrong. Does Hunter Biden and Jill Biden really have that influence of the president, and are the advisors, being pushed aside? We saw stories on this that the blame was going to the staff. Anita Dunn, his chief of staff, that they were to blame for what happened. And then we find out, no, but Hunter Biden was right there and Jill was right there giving them advice. And they're the ones telling him that he should stick in. In fact, the stories that come again from the mainstream media say Hunter was one of the biggest ones pushing him to stay in. You see all these. We've talked about the leaked stories there's hardly been a leak from this White House, and all of a sudden there's leaks all over the place.
Yeah.
Is it true? You ask yourself, okay, what are the possibilities? One possibility would be they've been leaking all the time. The media just won't report it if it's negative news against the president, which you could look at and say, I could see that, right?
Yeah, sure.
Or the White House is now leaking, the aides are leaking because they're losing control, and the family is the one that Jill and Hunter are the ones that are now actually running the White House, and it's infuriating the White House staff.
Yeah. Look, and those stories were out over the last several days about that and about how the First Lady and her staff and essentially a handful, and I do mean just 4 or 5 people right now are the key to building a wall around the president, and everything else is chaos from the staffer's point of view. They just don't have that kind of access. They don't have the trust by the First Lady, and so it seems like to them, from their perspective, they don't know what to do and they don't know what's going on. And that sounds about right. That sounds like a chaotic scene that you would have in a situation like this. There's no reason to believe it would be otherwise.
Well, the other would be that they feel betrayed because they've been covering for the president this entire time. They've gotten through the damage and everything that Hunter has caused them, and now they're being thrown aside. They're being thrown under the bus, and Hunter and Jill are becoming his most trusted advisors after they've stuck with him for the last 3.5 years in this complete cluster.
Right.
And now they're being thrown under the bus. And I say this because then this story came out. Another Axios story. According to a report from Axios, Biden staffers prepare short documents with large print to help him navigate events. These documents include photos of the stage marked with instructions such as view from podium, view from audience. Additionally, the documents contain separate pages with pictures labeled walk to podium to guide the president to his speaking spot.
Yeah.
It surprised me that a seasoned political pro like the president would need detailed verbal and visual instructions on how to enter and exit a room, the staffer who assisted with the fundraiser told Axios. Individuals close to Biden have confirmed the necessity of such detailed instructions. An anonymous source who has staffed Biden over the past 18 months mentioned, I staffed a simple fundraiser at a private residence, but they treated it like it was a NATO summit with his movements. In response to the report, White House spokesperson Andrew Bates stated that the high levels of detail and precision are critical to presidential advance work, blah, 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 blah. They're actually not denying it.
Right.
Well, why all of a sudden dozens and dozens and dozens and dozens of leaks from the White House where we've hardly had any leaks in the 3.5 years that he has been president?
Well, that's it. What is changing? Was the media just reluctant to report on leaks? They know full well, because they're part of calling out their own. If you're called out, for doing something, hey, what are you, pro-Trump? So now do they just feel like it's okay to report on the leaks? You're always going to have information coming out of any White House. You're going to have leaks. But what's changed? Well, nobody wants to be the first at the buffet table or the buffet line. You want to wait until everybody else is jumping in. So now do they feel more empowered because they have more and more on the left, more and more of their own? Reporting on what's going on. You've got the Washington Post, the New York Times, You got all these liberal publications now that are part of the reporting of the reality we've all been seeing for a while.
Wall Street Journal, President Biden's interview on Friday with ABC's George Stephanopoulos, Schmoopy's husband, was a portrait in defiance. It won't stem the establishment campaign unfolding against him. The media that covered for him has turned with a vengeance. The sleuths at the New York Times and Washington Post have suddenly discovered that the debate wasn't merely a bad night.
Yeah.
Now they tell us there have been many such episodes of demonstrable cognitive decline. Who knew? Well, the American people knew, since they are not oblivious to evidence that they can see. They have said so in every poll for over a year. Special Counsel Robert Hur knew also, but the debate has forced the establishment to admit the truth they could no longer deny or hide.
Yeah, right.
The Times, The Atlantic, The New Yorker, CNN, Morning Joe, Politico, Axios, the Hollywood and Wall Street donors, the gang's all here, moving in sync to cover their cover-up tracks. Now that Mr. Biden looks like a loser to Donald Trump, Joe has got to go. Why? He's going to be soon. If he doesn't get out, he'll be an oppressor soon.
Exactly.
Not just a victim, he'll be an oppressor.
Yeah.
Elected Democrats have to be more cautious, but those defections have also begun. They talk about the numbers of members of Congress that have actually talked about it. The decisive moment will come when the Obama wing of the establishment turns. Barack Obama's early post-debate backing, bad debate nights happen, trust me, I know, has become studied silence. His former advisor, David Axelrod, all but said on CNN Friday night, more in sorrow than anger, that the end is near for the president. Biden may continue to resist, as he did on Friday night with Mr. Stephanopoulos, but the longer he does, the more brutal the establishment campaign against him will become. The president's every word will be scrutinized for mistakes, his every step examined for signs of Parkinson's. That story came out also. 9 times the Parkinson's specialist has been to the White House. The questions will be, who knew, what about his decline, and when? CNN's chief medical correspondent, Dr. Gupta, now wants Mr. Biden to take a cognitive test. Mr. Biden said on Friday his daily work is a cognitive test, which is the problem.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the whole point.
But yeah, he goes, it's admirable that he didn't blame his advisors, but Mr. Biden has a hard time finishing a sentence, much less completing an argument. When he loses his train of thought, he deflects with the word anyway. This is not a man who will be able to persuade Democrats that he can stand up to Mr. Trump's assault for the next 4 months, nor persist the public that he can withstand the rigors of the office and deal with Vladimir Putin until he's 86 years old. And the other thing, too, Republicans are going to try as this continues to grow and grow and grow, because the anger of Democrats is only going to grow. And that means Republicans are going to be in there saying, wait a minute, if they want him out now, if they don't believe he has a cognitive ability to run a campaign and argue against Trump, why is he president?
Right. Yeah, if it's down to a handful of people there at the White House, primarily the president's family, who are just, being defiant. Biden has always been defiant. His defiance is not surprising. His wife, Jill Biden's defiance, not surprising. Hunter, we're just trying to figure out, what's going on with him and why he would be on the inner circle. But, of course, he's going to be loyal to his father. But if the Democrats see that, defiance is not breaking. And they know. They're worried about the down ballot. They're worried about the effect of their party on November 5th, not just the White House race. They have to look at all the other races. This story came out on July 4th from New York Post. Biden's inner circle shrinks to these two men, according to certain sources. And one of them is the First Lady's top aide, Anthony Bernal. And Bernal, apparently, according to the New York Post, is a divisive figure there inside the White House, bullying and other harassment allegations that surround him. And First Lady Jill Biden considers Bernal her, quote, unquote, work husband. And Bernal is close to Hunter Biden as well. On the day of the conviction, June 11th, rather, Bernal greeted Hunter with a hug after the whole felony gun conviction. So there's a lot of trust between Jill Biden and Hunter Biden and Anthony Bernal. And according to this story in the Post, if you're to believe the sources there at the White House that they use for this source, that Bernal is the closest thing to Jill Biden. And Mike has basically the power and is going to do whatever Jill Biden wants done. If that defiance is there, the point being, if that defiance is there and the Democrats see it as not breaking, keep in mind what you've been witnessing since the debate is exactly what we said was going to happen. That first weekend was going to be, what do we do now? Then when they all come to a consensus, we can't risk the down ballot. We can't risk this falling out on the rest of the party, on the rest of us in power now. Then we have to try and talk to them. Talking isn't working, then what do you do next? That's the question.
866-90-RED-EYE.
Get in touch with Red Eye Radio, toll free at 866-90-RED-EYE.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Coming up following the top of the hour, what would Democrats do if they can get Biden to drop out? What would they actually do? There's actually a plan out there. We'll tell you what the plan says, but that's if Biden decides to drop out. Right now, nobody is convincing him. This is interesting. What would be the standard for the Biden family to say, no, we're not going to run? Would it be leadership coming to the White House? Would it be leadership with the signatures of 90% of the Democrats in Congress? What would be enough to get Biden out? That's a question I don't know if anybody can answer.
Well, I don't know if they could, but I mean, it would make sense that if it got to that level, that you got the overwhelming majority on board in Congress and you went to the White House and said, it's either you do it or we do it. Now, at that point, I still don't know. I think the First Lady, I think the President would look at it and say, bring it on.
Well, the only way they can get rid of him is the 25th Amendment.
Exactly. And
I believe
are they going to do that?
That starts with the Vice President.
Exactly. Is that going to happen? Likely no.
No.
So what do you have that you could convince him with?
Money?
$100 million. What do you think? We'll pay him to get out. We'll make China pay for it.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One.